Ladies and gentlemen, SookyMMA is back, and we're going to do things a little differently. Just a big quick hitter here for the next UFC Vegas card coming up here in just under a couple hours, and change things up a little bit for UFC 271 next weekend. And you know, UFC 270 was another under 500 record for us, but we hit the big ones once again. So we go 5-6. We're 9-12 in 2022, but 2-0 in the Super Saiyan pick. So overall, 18-10 on the Super Saiyan pick, but 13-5 in our last 18. And overall, we go 399, 236-5, 149-74-2 in our last 18 UFC cards, and 66-31-1 on our last 18 main cards. So, you know, we'll fly through this card, get us ready for next week as we change things up, like I said. But I'm pretty pumped for it. I think there's going to be some underrated fighters that we're going to get to know, and that's what makes for the best UFC Vegas cards, as they say. So let's get right into it. Malcolm Gordon, Dennis Bonner, so another Canadian brother here. But, you know, I'm going to say that a lot of people are going to be against him, and as usual, we're going to take a guess at the lines before we take a look at them. But, you know, we saw Dennis pull out of fights in 2021 quite often. I mean, rescheduled the Malcolm Gordon fight to this one. So we just haven't seen him fight that much. You look at his highlight reel, you know, he's got some good wrestling. There's a lot of power type of striking. And I think if Malcolm Gordon can keep the distance, try to win the points battle, he has an opportunity there. But that chin is always going to be something that people question. And the level changes is where we're going to be able to see him do some damage. He did that against Figgy Jr., which kind of put him back on the right track after getting two tough, you know, first fights in the UFC. So that's kind of where I did enjoy seeing, you know, Malcolm Gordon get back on the winning trail. But, you know, you look at Bondar, you look at the chokes, you look at the wrestling, and yeah, he does have some power on the feet, and all those things you kind of don't want to see from a guy like Bondar going into a fight against like Malcolm Gordon. But I'm going to say Bondar at a -170. I think it makes sense. We know where both guys need to be successful, so let's take a look here at the original and live line. So we got Dennis Bondar, opener -263, and now sitting just comfortably at a -305. So we have the right idea of the favorite, but way off on how much juice there is on him. Jason Witt and Philip Rowe next. I really like Philip Rowe in this fight, and the reason why is I like Rowe's durability. I like his ability to keep the fight standing and try to finish the fight in those areas, because Witt is a guy that's going to push that wrestling. He's going to push that grappling, and you look at his good chokes and things like that. He has to get Rowe into those areas, and Rowe's been spending a lot of time in the grappling matches. And for me, Witt has to get in close, and this guy's had some issues with that. You know, you think about how long Philip Rowe's going to be and how long he does fight. He's got great jabs, great kicks. Those are the things that Witt's going to struggle with. So I'm going to go with Rowe here. It's about a -125, -130 is what I have here. I think he's going to have all of the skills that are needed to take on a guy like Jason Witt for this one. So let's take a look here. Jason Witt opens up +143, but it's coming down, so they are very close. I mean, my line of -125, you know, matches where the line's at right now, but -140 for Philip Rowe, and I do like him in that fight. Next up, we got Jelton Almeida versus Danilo Marques. Now, you know, a couple great grapplers, one, you know, kind of on his come up, and we've seen Marquez fight in the past. And the one thing I never thought I'd find myself saying is Danilo Marques striking advantage here, but probably, I mean, I think that we've seen him tire out a little bit from trying to take Kennedy and Nzechukwu down for a little too long in that fight, and Kennedy's got an amazing gas tank and was able to pull that one out pretty cleanly. But in this fight, I actually really liked Danilo Marques in this one. I'm gonna give him a favorite line of about -140. I think it makes the most sense. We saw Jelton look like a great athlete, but he's not able to find those areas to damage up Danilo Marques, take him down. You know, we know that Danilo Marques is coming from a very, you know, brutal camp that featured guys like Shogun Rua, Damian Maia. He's got a good grappling style, guys who can take a beating. And so for me, I really do want to say that Almeida's gonna have to do some damage on the feet to be able to get this fight to the ground. So let's take a look. Marquez -140 was my line, and yeah, I mean, there it is. Danilo Marques, massive, you know, dog, +175 opener, now over +300 for some people, and we're looking at Almeida -400 and higher. Wow, I'm very surprised by that line. I think we have to put a sprinkle on Marquez, and if I take him in the pick'em, I mean, we'll see how that goes. This could be Julia's last fight in the UFC, right? Alexis Davis versus Julia Stoliarenko. Now, it's a pretty tough fight, in my opinion, for her. I'm curious as to why they gave her this one, but you know, your biggest knock on Alexis Davis has to be how she's able to kind of almost visually win a point battle, but when you really think about it, how much are they counting leg strikes for? You know, she's the queen of the leg kicks, lands them very frequently no matter who she's fighting. But the problem is she able to mix up this head strike? Is she able to do damage to the head, which is what seems to be doing a lot more damage to the judges' scorecards, if you will. But outside of that, we saw the Sabino Mazo fight. We saw where she's able to utilize a lot of that striking, find ways to mix it up, get some takedowns. I think that's where she's going to be able to do some damage. And Soliarenko, man, even that Yana Kutskaya fight, I mean, what is it, 6 significant strikes? I mean, it's going to be a tough fight for her to really be able to find ways to not only put combinations together, but then also see if she can do some damage on the ground. I find it very tough. So I'm going with the Davis line of -1 or -290. I think that makes the most sense here. I can see her really winning a point battle in the way that she likes to. So, wow. Okay, so my line's a little crazy, but Alexis Davis -145 opener, now sitting about -245, -250. Guys, I think that's an easy bankable win. I think that really is the type of fight that you want her to win. And if she loses it, I mean, kudos to Julia for being able to stay in the UFC, in my opinion. And Alexis Davis not being able to win something that on paper looks like just the perfect opportunity for her to showcase that point striking style of fighting that she loves would be a pretty questionable W for Julia. But next up, we got Chidi Njokuani and Marc-Andre Barrios. So now I really think the fights are starting to take off here, in my opinion. We got a couple back-to-back Canadians, so I'm a little biased there. But I really think that Marc-Andre Barrios is going to have the durability here to showcase a lot of what he can do. He throws with volume. He's not afraid to really take the fight into dangerous areas. A lot of dirty boxing. And look at the way that Chidi fights. I mean, it's very point-style fighting, right? And he's got some experience with Bellator fighters, probably some of their best fighters, but it's just those late rounds, really grinding it out. I think Marc-Andre Barrios is going to bring a different style of fighting, and so let's take a look. He's really looked different now. Pick'em, Marc-Andre Barrios open as a -160, now sitting as a pick'em. I had him about -120. I think it is a very close fight. Going to be hard to make a pick'em pick even on that one. But let's move on, because I think I'm leaning towards Barrios, and we'll give him the edge for the biased opinion there. But Hakeem Dawood and Michael Trezano. Now Trezano was an absolutely phenomenal fight last time out. I really enjoyed that Ludovic win. You saw how much he's able to grind out wins and get better as the fight goes on. Now for Dawood, this is my biggest take. I mean, you think about Movzar. I've really spoken about this guy. In my head, I look at that guy and I see a potential title challenger, dark horse, whatever you want to call him. But down the line, he's got this skill set that gets guys there just based on that. Not talking, not getting the money fights, but really just proving his way there. And so for Dawood to only let him after getting such a nice win streak going, I think that this is a fight where he can finally get back on that streak after losing such a tough battle there. And it was a close fight too. So for me, top 10 talent there. I see both guys really being able to showcase their skills at that level now, but the volume. You look at how well Dawood has looked in the past, on the feet. He's able to avoid the takedowns, keep that fight, in a real technical striking place. He seems to have the power, then he's working with the right people now. So for me, I'm leaning with a pick'em again, similar to the last fight, but Dawood was about -110. I think that's a fair line there. Wow, Dawood is getting some bump here. -188 opener. Now sitting about a -180, 170. Trezano +160, +150. I mean, that's a close fight even in the MMA world, and makes it a bit crazy for me to see. So let's move on to Miles Johnson, John Castaneda, basically highlighting the prelim card, and I'm absolutely in love with this fight. Now here's why. You look at just how elite Miles Johnson's looked outside of that, timing. That's what makes the UFC so good, right? That is a picture perfect, knee knockout, and you think about the skill, you think about the timing and everything that has to go into play for a guy like this to get knocked out like that. It's pretty impressive, but you can also say, how much does a person open themselves up to things like that on a regular basis? You look at his track record. He's a great wrestler, but he chooses to strike, and I think in this fight, those are the areas where John Castaneda is going to have to exploit Miles Johns a little bit. I think that you really think that Castaneda can last the 3 rounds. So it's up to Miles Johns to really, as he's shown us, bank in that 3-round type power and wait for a fun finished fight in that 3rd round for either guy, really, because I think both guys are going to have the durability, but it's about who's smarter, who's going to be able to go the 3 rounds and avoid the big shots. And, Miles Johns has that LFA title win over Adrian Yanez, and for me, that really is kind of the nail in the coffin for this one. And so I'm going Miles Johns about a -180. I think that's a fair line, and Bing, bang, boom. There's my first hit of the night. Miles Johns opened as a -250, now sitting about a -178, -180. Castaneda +208, now sitting about a +153. I think that's a great, opportunity for both guys to prove themselves, and I am leaning Miles Johns. I think that he's proven time and time again that he's able to do it, and you look at a guy like Castaneda, that Nathaniel Wood fight showed us that he can last with really good strikers and fast guys, but that Eddie Wineland fight is kind of the asterisk for me, because the knockout of Eddie Wineland at this point in his career is something that I really do kind of don't want to give too much bump for. So now we get into the main card. We got Julian Erosa and Steven Peterson. I think Steven Peterson is really writing his UFC story all over again. I think he proved himself against a huge prospect like Chase Hooper, avoided the easy areas where he knew there might be more technical for him even if he had to, and filled them up really, really well on the feet. Now takes on a guy like Julian Erosa. Now the thing about this fight is Julian Erosa, I just rarely feel like he can win a decision. When he wins, he finishes, and when he loses, sometimes he loses with pretty brutal knockouts, but he can win in just as a beautiful way anyway as well. But for me, I'm actually leaning Steven Peterson this way. Julian Erosa, one of my favorite fighters of all time, honestly speaking. Probably one of my favorite fighters from one of the best tough seasons ever as well. And the thing is, even that last fight was bittersweet for me because I saw Julian Erosa beat what I kind of consider my favorite, if not the best, Canadian prospect to kind of watch on the come-up in Charles Jourdain. So in this one, I'm going to go with the technical fighter and Steven Peterson. He's shown a lot of good, durability, ring IQ, that kind of stuff. And that's what I really think helps you in these dog fights where you never know what can happen. And I really give him that edge. So let's go with Steven Peterson at -130 here. He proved to be a pretty smart fighter against Chase Hooper as well. And we've got Steven Peterson +225 dog, now sitting as high as +250, +255. I mean, Julian Erosa is a -300 favorite. As much as I love the guy, it's pretty crazy to see that, because I mean, Peterson hasn't been finished in almost a decade. So I'm pretty blown away by that one. I think this is going to be a volume strikers, treasure fight. So let's see what happens with that one. And that might be a dog or pass type of fight, because that's a crazy line for Julian. And best of luck to both guys. That's going to be fun as hell. Tresean Gore and Brian Battle in what is a rematch for the tough finale. We know Gore got a knee injury, couldn't fight, and so Brian Battle ended up winning that one. But now we get to see them do battle finally on a UFC card, and Brian Battle's really proved himself, in my opinion. I think that he's got the durability. He's got some really good submission work. He's got some really good submission work that I think that can benefit him over the course of this fight, depending on how good Gore's gas tank will be. The thing about Gore that I really liked over the course of his time on Tough, he's only got a 3-0 record, but you saw that he didn't really show too much when he was fighting. He doesn't waste his energy. He really picks his shots well, and you look at the way he finished that semifinal. I mean, that finishing blow, it just really looked so high level, right? The stop, the pause, the eye, like where his eye level was, everything about it, picture perfect. And I think that he had so many shots in that you can't tell yourself it was a fluke. And for me, with that hidden power there, with the ability to see his shots so well, I think that's a fighter that has already proven that he can not only use his wrestling if he needs to, which is a really good accolade on his belt, but that striking is really starting to show its face. And I think that Battle has shown to be relatively hittable. So for me, I'm gonna go with Battle as a favorite. I think he's proven more than enough at -160, but I think Tresean Gore has the shot to win this fight. So let's take a look. Wow, so I mean, the line is closing in, but Tresean Gore opened as a -170, now about a -140, and Brian Battle open as a +140, now about as +110 to +120. That's an interesting one. Sam Alvey, Brendan Allen. I mean, where are we right now? Sam Alvey, I mean, getting all the fights in the world to prove himself in the UFC. I mean, in this one, you've got a guy like Brendan Allen who's lost to elite competition, right? In my opinion, guys like Curtis, Strickland, those guys are elite. And for me, Brendan Allen now is getting a gimme fight from a UFC perspective, because, to be honest, it's one of those ones where he's going to be able to showcase some grappling. He's going to be able to mix it up a little bit. If he can avoid that left hand, I mean, Sam's career's 81% takedown defense is really going to be tested there, because you look at the way that he hasn't even won, right? 2018 is the last time we've seen him when he's gone 0-6-1 in those 7 fights, and 3 of those are split decisions, including 1 split draw. So the guy really has struggled to find the winning trail and has put up a fight in the process of doing so. So when you think about Brendan Allen, is he as good as Julian Marquez? I believe he is, and I think that he can beat a lot of those guys that we saw those split decisions and stuff like that happen against. So for me, I have to go Brendan Allen. I'm going to go with the line about -200. I think that's more than fair for what we've seen from Brendan Allen and the people he's fought. So, I mean, there it is. Open as a -350 now, but a -440. We know what both guys bring to the table, so that one's kind of sitting where we expected to. And now we get Shavkat Rakhmonov and Carlston Harris. Now, Carlston Harris, this is the true definition of, prospect versus prospect on the come up. But Shavkat Rakhmonov, that's a guy I've been speaking about for so long. Boys with Rafael Fiziev, trains out of Sanford MMA. And the reason why I'm going to give him the edge here, and what I think is a very close fight, is I think he's going to be able to avoid those, very dangerous darts and anaconda chokes, those arm chokes that, Carlston's so good at. And I think what we've seen from him in the UFC track record, the guys he's fought, Pajerish, that's a very, very well groomed UFC fighter. The guy's record is absolutely insane, and I think that for him to get a W against a guy like that is absolutely huge, especially coming off a guy like the Cowboy Oliveira win, both finishes. I think he's got that durability. He fought for titles when he was in Russia. It's just, he really seems to be the guy that's on the come up at just 20-something years old. It just, that story seems to be there. And with Carlston Harris, so, that's kind of that other story of the guy who's a little bit older, come up in the same ways to Brazil, the first guy he's fight in the UFC. I think that we've seen his striking, in the little we've seen from him, the accuracy is what I really love about him. He's just shown that he can really land the big shots. Now, I think Shavkat has that chin. That's what makes me believe that he's going to be able to deal with him for 3 rounds. So I'm going to give Shavkat a line of -160. I really think he can win this fight, and that's not a biased opinion. So let's take a look here. -225, now about -240 in some places, but Carlston Harris is surpassing that +200 line in some areas, and be honest, that could be a lot of the public buzz surrounding Shavkat, but that fight is very close, and I think that Rakhmonov does have the skills and durability to come out of that one with the W. Now, Punahele Soriano, Nick Maximov. Now, Punahele Soriano is one of those guys where it's like you love watching him in the first round, one of the most dangerous fighters in the first round, but you're watching him and thinking, just conserve some of this for the later parts of the fight so we can watch you do this for an even longer period of time. Always exciting. But that Brendan Allen fight, right? We saw him really gas out and not be able to take on a guy who's getting better at becoming a technical striker and being able to go longer in fights, which is where I think Pune's got to really take his game to that next level. And that takedown defense, right? Like that, the fact that he can keep himself on his feet for that long, but that just needs to kind of have that energy to keep going for 3 rounds. I mean, he's got so much potential. That raw skill is just amazing. The durability's there. And for Nick Maximov, it's really about just being able to take that first round damage and seeing what he can do later in the fight. He knows that he's going to be able to try and, challenge that takedown defense of Pune's, but that's really what he's been looking to do. He's a pure wrestler. He likes that ground game, good jiu-jitsu, that kind of stuff, but that's where it's such a good clash of striker versus grappler, in my opinion, but 2 guys who can excel in both areas. So I'm going with the Knicks as a -140 favorite, but I mean, it really is such a close fight based on game plan, and I think that if Pune is able to conserve some energy, if he doesn't get that big finish in the first round, I mean, it's going to be an interesting fight later in second, third round. So let's take a look here. Pune -200 favorite opener, now sitting, I mean, -190, -185, and Maximum +150 now, but a +260, +170. So still a close fight, but I mean, I had Nick as a favorite there, and Pune's coming in pretty hot, so it's nice to see that he's getting that bump in a fight where he does have the skill to come up with a big W. Now, the main event, Jack Hermansson, Sean Strickland. I don't want to spend too much time on this because you look at the way Jack fights, the cons in his skill set. In the Edmund fight, it was really about just lasting. We took Jack in that fight. We really believe that he's going to be able to outlast him in that first round and then do some of his own damage later in the fight, similar to Derek Brunson. We took Derek Brunson against Edmund as well. It's very clear-cut game plan and just also how things can play out in those types of fights. But in this fight, Sean Strickland, he's becoming very good with that 1-2 striking style. He's got a relatively good takedown defense. Hasn't been taken down since that Kamaru Usman fight back in 2017. And the one thing that I do want to give Jack Hermansson some credit on is he does look like the more natural 185er. We know that Sean Strickland came up from 170, and if he's able to get Sean down to the ground, I think maybe the skill set coupled with that raw power that is not really so much what you use in grappling, but that combination could really make it something that if he's able to get the fight there, maybe he's able to, you know, do some of that point battling and a lot more grappling and test Sean's ability to get back to the feet. But on the feet, the way I see this fight playing out 9 times out of 10, to be quite honest, is Sean being able to fill up Jack for 5 straight rounds and maybe not see the ground so much with Jack, because I don't even know if he's going to have the power to finish him either, because you look at the Raya Hall fight, just a really good performance for 5 rounds. So I'm going Sean as a -220 favorite. I think it just makes the most sense here. And there we go, baby. Miles Johns, you know, prelim main event, hit that one dead on. And here we go, Sean Strickland, dead on, -220 live line, open as a -195. Jack's hitting about a +170. Now around the same thing, but highest about a +190. So, you know, some pretty solid fights on this card, very close bouts. I think we got some pretty good picks in already. We're gonna get the final picks up on Twitter and Instagram, so keep an eye out for that. We'll get the you know, full clip up on YouTube as usual, and throw some clips up on Instagram and you know, as we always do. But stay tuned for next week as we take things to a completely different level and try to get things going in a bigger way. Loving picking the fights, and look forward to the fun on Instagram as usual. Peace.